There's something that looks exactly like AI anxiety but functions completely differently. It has a different cause. It responds to different things. And if you've been treating one as the other, which most people are, that's why nothing has changed. Most of the conversation about how professionals are responding to AI collapses two very different experiences into one word: overwhelmed. But overwhelmed covers a lot of ground. And the thing underneath, the actual mechanism, determines everything about what helps. Today, that mechanism gets named. By the end of this video, you'll be able to tell the difference between anxiety and avoidance, in general and in yourself. You'll know what each one is actually asking for. And you'll have a matched response to whichever one is running in the background right now. That's not a small thing. Most people spend months, sometimes years, applying the wrong solution to the right problem. Let's start by naming what anxiety actually is, because it's the one that gets misread most often. Anxiety, real professional anxiety about AI, is a rational response to a genuine threat signal. It's not neurosis. It's not weakness. It's not catastrophizing. It is your nervous system correctly identifying that something significant is changing in the environment where you earn your living and alerting you that it requires a response. That alert has specific signatures. Anxiety feels like urgency. It has an activating quality. It pushes toward action, even when you don't know what action to take. It shows up as the compulsive consumption of AI content, the saved articles, the downloaded tools, the browser tabs that never close. Anxiety is looking for information, not because information resolves it, but because information is what the anxiety believes will give it something to do. The person in anxiety is not avoiding the problem. They are, in their own way, running toward it. They just don't have a clear enough path to land anywhere. Here is the thing research on professional adaptation consistently confirms. Anxiety, when it has a clear and actionable target, converts. It becomes motivation, it becomes learning, it becomes the energy that drives real change. The problem with anxiety in the AI context is not the anxiety itself. It's that the landscape is designed to sustain it rather than resolve it. Every new tool announcement, every LinkedIn post about someone's AI transformation, every "you need to learn this now" headline, those don't give anxiety somewhere useful to go. They refuel it. So anxiety is not the enemy. Anxiety, properly aimed, is the engine. The question is whether what you're carrying right now is actually anxiety, or something that shares its surface features but operates on a completely different logic. Now let's talk about what that other thing is. Avoidance looks a lot like anxiety from the outside. And it often feels like anxiety from the inside too. That's what makes it hard to see. But avoidance is not a response to a threat signal. Avoidance is a response to the threat of feeling something specific. Usually the feeling that comes with trying something and discovering you can't do it well. This is worth slowing down for, because the professional version of avoidance is sophisticated. It doesn't show up as obvious procrastination, it shows up as patience, it shows up as discernment. I'm waiting until the tools are more mature. I want to find the right workflow before I start. I've seen too many people waste time on things that didn't last. I'm being strategic. Those statements can all be true. They can also all be avoidance wearing professional clothing. The tell is not what you're saying. The tell is what isn't moving. If you've been waiting for the right time for more than 3 months and nothing specific has changed about the landscape that would make this month different, that's a signal worth examining. If you've started 3 different AI tools and abandoned each one before the second week, and the reason you give changes each time, that's a signal worth examining. If you feel a specific resistance when a colleague mentions they've integrated something into their workflow, not curiosity, not inspiration, but a tightening, that's a signal worth examining. Here is the thing about avoidance that the AI productivity space will almost never say. It is not a character flaw. It is a protection mechanism. At some point, probably a specific point, the possibility of trying to integrate AI and discovering that it was harder than expected, or that the output didn't match the quality you hold your work to, or that you felt incompetent in a domain where you've built years of confidence. That possibility became more threatening than the discomfort of staying still. And avoidance stepped in to keep you from having to find out. That's not laziness. That's a nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do. The honest answer is, it was probably the right call at some point. The harder question is whether it's still serving you now. So here's where we get specific. The diagnostic. So here's the diagnostic. Not clinical. Practical. 5 signatures. Some will fit one more than the other. Most people land somewhere in the middle, and that's useful information too. Signature 1. The direction of your energy. Anxiety moves toward the problem, even chaotically. Avoidance moves around it, even carefully. Ask yourself, when you think about AI in your work, are you moving towards something specific, even if you don't know where it leads? Or are you finding sophisticated reasons to remain in place? Signature 2. What happens when someone else integrates something? Anxiety responds with urgency. I need to figure out my version of that. Avoidance responds with a tightening, a subtle but specific resistance that shows up as skepticism, or dismissal, or a private calculation of why their situation is different. Signature 3. The pattern with tools you've already tried. Anxiety tries things and abandons them because they didn't work well enough yet. Avoidance tries things and abandons them before there was enough time to find out. The distinction is in the timing of the exit and the reason given for it. Signature 4. What you're actually consuming. Anxiety consumes to find a solution, even if it can't identify the right one yet. Avoidance consumes to stay close enough to the topic that it doesn't feel like avoidance. There's a specific kind of AI content consumption that functions as a substitute for integration, where watching someone else do the thing creates just enough proximity to the work that the discomfort of not doing it stays manageable. If that sentence landed, hold it for a moment. Signature 5. What you do after you finish something like this video. Anxiety takes the information and immediately looks for where to apply it. Avoidance takes the information, finds it genuinely valuable, and returns to the same workflow it's had for the last year. Here is the reframe, not the reassuring one, the honest one. Neither of these is a verdict on your adaptability. Anxiety is asking for a target, one specific thing to move toward this week in your actual work. Avoidance is asking for a small enough exposure that the protection mechanism doesn't activate one low-stakes attempt where the cost of imperfection is contained. Both are navigable, but only if you know which one you're working with. The reason avoidance has been so persistent isn't because you're not capable. It's because everything in the AI content landscape is designed at the wrong scale. The tutorials are too long, the systems are too complete. The implied standard, here's what you should be doing by now, is too high. The protection mechanism activates not because the task is impossible, but because the way it's been presented makes failure feel enormous. That's not a personal failure, that's a structural one. If this video has given you a diagnostic, but you're not yet sure what it means for your specific role, where you actually stand, what actually matters for the kind of work you do, there's an assessment in the description built exactly for that. It takes 20 minutes. It gives you a profession-specific picture of where you are relative to actual adoption curves and the 3 tools that matter for your role, not AI in general. The link is in the description and the pinned comment. Now here's what to do with what you've just learned. If what you're carrying is primarily anxiety, the activating, information-seeking, urgency-flavored version, here's what it's actually asking for. Not more content. A target. Anxiety converts when it has one specific, bounded thing to move toward. Not a system. Not a transformation. One task in your actual workflow this week, where you use one tool once and see what happens. The anxiety doesn't need to go away before you start. It just needs somewhere specific to go. The professionals who've moved through this fastest are not the ones who felt ready. They're the ones who found the smallest possible version of the first step and took it while the anxiety was still present. If what you're carrying is primarily avoidance, the sophisticated, strategic-sounding, protective version, here's what that's actually asking for. Not a system overhaul. Not a commitment. An exposure so small that the protection mechanism doesn't have enough to work with. Not, I'm going to integrate AI into my workflow. I'm going to use one tool for one specific task this Tuesday and I'm going to allow it to be imperfect. The avoidance isn't protecting you from AI, it's protecting you from a specific feeling. The feeling of incompetence in a domain where you've built your confidence. And the only thing that resolves that is a low-stakes experiment where the cost of imperfection is contained enough that you can actually find out what happens. Here's what that actually looks like on a Tuesday morning. You're working on something. A document, a brief, an analysis, a communication, something you do regularly. You open one tool, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, whichever one you've been curious about, and you use it for one part of that task. Not the whole thing. One part. You don't evaluate whether it changes your life. You don't compare the output to your best work. You just notice what happened. That's the exposure. That's the first data point. The reason this matters And the reason the diagnostic matters is that the wrong intervention makes things worse. Telling someone in avoidance that they need a complete system is the surest way to make the avoidance more entrenched. Telling someone in anxiety to just try one small thing, without giving them a framework for what they're trying and why, produces a low-quality attempt that confirms their fear that they can't do this well. The intervention has to match the mechanism. And you can only match the mechanism once you know which one you're in. If the diagnostic in this video opens something you want to take further, the assessment in the description gives you the profession-specific version of this. Exactly where you stand, and the 3 tools that actually matter for your role. Link in the description and the pinned comment. Which signature landed for you? The anxiety description, the avoidance one, or an honest combination of both? Name it in the comments. You'll probably find you're not the only one. There's a version of the next few months where you continue carrying this as one undifferentiated weight. A vague sense that something needs to change. A recurring guilt about the tools you haven't used. A low-grade dread that arrives with every LinkedIn post about someone else's transformation. That weight has a name now, and it might be 2 names. Anxiety and avoidance look similar from the outside. They feel similar from the inside. But they are asking for completely different things. And the professionals who move through this period without losing their craft, without abandoning what they've built, without starting over, without the identity fracture that comes from treating expertise as a liability. Those are not people with less anxiety or less avoidance. They're people who learn to distinguish between them. Who asked the harder question? Not, why am I stuck? But what specific mechanism is holding me here, and what does it actually need? That question leads somewhere. The undifferentiated weight does not. A year from now, there will be professionals in every field who look back on this period and say, that was when I stopped treating this as one problem and started treating it as 2. That's when something actually shifted. Those aren't exceptional people. They're people who found the right frame and followed it to a first step. You now have the frame. You know whether you're carrying anxiety, avoidance, or some honest combination of both. You know what each one is asking for. That's a different position than the one you were in at the beginning of this video. What you do with it is yours.